What's up, guys? Doug Polk here with some exclusive card player content. Today we're going to be talking about how to be smart about losing sessions. Now look, we've all been there. You sit down, you're bringing your A game, and all of a sudden your kings are into aces, or maybe your set, isn't the best set. Or more realistically, your top pair loses to a flush draw. These things happen, and when they compound, you could be losing big in a session pretty quickly. But here's the important thing to think about when these things happen, and they will happen, that's a guarantee. When this is happening to you, remember that each hand is an individual moment. Don't think about it like X and Y sessions. I won $200 this morning or today, and I lost $400 tomorrow. Think about it in terms of individual hands. This will help alleviate some of that psychological pressure to book wins. It's a big problem in poker. People oftentimes feel like they need to book wins. To be honest with you, I'm guilty of that, as well as I'm sure most poker players are too. So the question is, how do we look at it in the most healthy and productive way? And I would say it's kind of like this. At the start of every orbit, before you post your big blind, ask yourself just briefly, do I feel I'm still playing my A game? Do I feel I'm still looking for reads on my opponent? Do I feel that I've played well so far? Is my mind in a healthy state? Am I upset? Am I tilted? And if you think that there's something wrong where you don't want to play or you're not in the right mindset, then take a breather, especially in a cash game. Now, tournaments are a little bit different. We'll talk about that later, but you can walk away at any point. Don't feel like you have to play to get unstuck. Remember, individual instances. If you're a winning player, you're going to get it back eventually. It doesn't matter if it's today or tomorrow, that day will come. So don't feel like there's this pressure to make that happen. Now, some players respond differently to losing big. And you have to be honest with yourself at home. You have to think about, how do I feel when I'm stuck big? If you're the kind of guy where you lose 3 stacks and you just hate that stupid grin on seat 3 because he just stacked you with his flush draw, then you might need to walk away, take a break, or come back another day. If you're the kind of person that realizes that this is part of the game and you're okay with that and you can just approach each hand individually, then you can keep playing. But it's important to have an honest assessment of your own degree of tilt. If you tilt badly, work breaks into your sessions. If you don't, you can play for longer periods of time. But again, it always boils back down to every single session is just a series of individual moments. Now, here's where that might be a little bit different. Let's say you're taking a shot into a bigger game, and you're not really bankrolled to lose more than a few buy-ins because you're picking your spots wisely and trying to move up in stakes. And by the way, if you are doing that, I'd recommend finding a poker buddy that you talk with a lot, that believes in you, and maybe sell them a small percentage of your action so that you can kind of smooth the gap. If you're going from, for example, 10-20 to 25-50, that's a huge gap. It's 2.5x the stakes. It'd be nice to be able to sell 20 or 25% to more slowly bridge the gap. But regardless, if you're in a situation where you only have a few buy-ins to lose, then when you start to hit near that point, you just have to walk away. Don't lose a ton of your roll because your ego's too big and you don't leave when you're already in over your head. At some point in poker, it's essential to move up in stakes. How you handle those moments is going to be critically important. Also, let's say that you play a stake for a few months, it doesn't go well, you end up losing over a relatively large sample. Well, it's time to move down, retool, and get back to where you think you belong. Don't feel like you have to play that stake and it's embarrassing to move down. I'll tell you guys, I've moved down in poker many times, probably way too many times, because I like to take shots when my bankroll dictates it, and I can live with those results. Now, let's talk about tournaments just for a moment. When you're tilting in a tournament, it's a little bit tougher because there's nowhere to go. What I'd recommend doing is taking a few deep breaths, thinking about the big picture of things, and playing maybe a little bit tighter until things kind of get together. I'd rather not be making loose calls and raises and whatever if you're not in a place mentally that you should be. Now, I'm not saying play tight when you lose pots, because that's clearly not what you should do. You should approach each hand as an individual moment to make a good decision. But if you do know that it's getting to you, it's way better to be a bit too tight than a bit too loose, or way too loose. It can become very easy to just punt money off when you're tilting. So overall, I would say, guys, be smart about losing sessions by knowing when to walk away, knowing when to take a breath, knowing when to kind of tighten it up until you just feel like you're back in a good place, and make sure you understand yourself so you can make the right decisions when you're playing. If you want to learn more about poker or these types of issues, or just up your poker game in general, I recommend checking out upswingpoker.com and checking out the lab.